union with Krishna. So, the loving Shakti is the only thing we can actually directly enjoy is like communion with Krishna. The Samyogini Radha and the Viyogini Radha are indirect angels because they're serving the purposes of the Lavini Shakti, which is to enhance Krishna's enjoyment, enhance his pleasure. So, the idea is that things which are gained after a long struggle, a war which is won, after a good fight, the victory is all the sweeter, you see. So to enhance the experience of sweetness in Krishna, to enhance the experience of pleasure in Krishna, they play hard to get. So the Viyogini Shakti Radha is serving to manifest such things as man and other aspects, which cause the sense of separation between each other, even though there isn't, ontologically speaking. But in terms of the workings of Yoga Maya and the progress of the Leela, these different Shaktis serve to create circumstances so that, because on the basis of Radha's desire, Lavini Shakti, Radha's desire, is to increase her value in the eyes of Krishna. Yes. See, Krishna plays his flute, calls everyone to Rasmandal, and then tells them to go back home. Breaks their heart. He's a heartbreaker. You see. And they're crying torrents of tears, washing their mascara and their kumkum from their breasts, and it's all mixing with the mud on the ground. And Hari. But, Krishna's getting some, pleasure out of making them work a little hard to get him. But he's not the only one who's playing that game. Tit for tat. Radharani's also playing this game. All the Sakhis, especially in Radharani's group, play this game. Because they know, it's not only that Krishna doesn't win, especially in relationship to the living entity who's fallen in this material world on account of having thrown away the eternal relationship. However you want to say. The problem is that Krishna doesn't want to be taken cheaply again. So therefore, he's really being on his flute, and your ears perk up. What was that? You come in contact with the Krishna consciousness movement, and then another Trigulidi, a few years down the line, after struggling, to overcome your anarthas and all these things, so finally, Krishna's, but he's just making himself a little obvious to catch your attention, and then as you reach out to touch him, then he backs up, and slips behind another tree. Makes it very difficult for us. And increasing our crying, our desperation, our anxiety about the whole affair, until we're torrents of tears, thinking that the whole world is absent or vacant in the absence of Krishna. I think that's the truth.
I read somewhere like Rama by Varka Purana by Shukula, they said that Radha curse. So Jivas and due to that curse, they just take material world, send it in a human like we play properly, like an instance that she can curse and they can come down to the material world.
Yeah, but there's a reason why Radhika. I think. But in any case, when we come to the position of being able to participate in the Leelas of Krishna directly, we're participating now. This is also part of the Leela of the Lord. It's like we're also participating in a Leela which is also relishable for Krishna. And Krishna, exhibits this compassionate nature, which is like gold. On the gold background of the spiritual world, it's not so, appreciated. But when he exhibits that same compassionate nature in his lifetime, contrast makes it all more. So he relishes that exhibition here in a way that he cannot relish there. So if he was intelligently make the best use of the bad bargain by allowing that bad bargain to serve even a purpose which serves a higher end than what he would serve. By relishing the same thing in such a contrast.
Mastership. Like all know what is the way it should that's the way
Like
service
everything is included within the chain. But in order for everything to be included in the chain, there has to be the development of one's.
What is the goal and the means?
Yes. But chanting is not let's say, such a simplistic thing. Chanting includes the culture of attitude, the culture of the ideal. So that's why it's essential to receive Nam from Nam who is qualified Vaishnava and who can direct you by proper instruction as to the meaning and definition, give definition to chanting the mantra. Otherwise, it's kind of a generic thing, just like Narada Muni was chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Guru Maharaj was chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. But because it was not fit, Narada did not give definition to that chanting. And as such, he got the generic form of Narayana, of Vishnu, Darshan of Vishnu, instead of Darshan of Vasudeva Krishna. So the chanting requires that there's some direction, some scientific approach. Otherwise, without scientifically understanding things, then we may chant in an indiscreet way, which will not allow us to actually alter the proper attitude.
So the Guru gives framework.
Yes, and gradually seeing the intrinsic nature of the disciple gives more detailed understanding, direction, so that we can understand that within Nam is our Guru.
Sending process. So we should just go towards.
It's always descending. Because Nam is a person, not a person. Nam is person, many persons. Your wife, can be chanting. Who's the oldest elder boy? Besides following, there are others. Sridhar. Bhagavan was younger. Subal was younger. But I think Sridhar is older. He's the older brother. Anyway, in any case, there are older ones. So when they're chanting, just like we may chant, or someone who's in the bus like that, you're Hare, and you so the Krishna, so the Rama. So because the Shaktis, all the Shaktis were there, so in the Mahamantra, as we become more and more fit and actually need question of necessity, because without having the necessity, there's nothing really to invoke that particular aspect of Krishna's. There has to be demand, and then there's supply. So it's necessary to understand, gradually. We start out, in a vague way, chanting Hare Krishna with the concept of being Krishna and Krishna. So what is the implication of that statement? How does that actually translate in terms of, specific, heartfelt efforts of the individual toward Krishna? That will gradually become manifest as we become more attached to Krishna by their grace. Everything is by the grace of Krishna, by the grace of Nam. And Nam is satisfied, because Nam is conscious. Nam knows very well what kind of attitude we're having toward him when we're chanting. So when he's satisfied with our approach, then he reveals something more. He inspires from within and from without. He inspires us more and more. Ultimately, Nam is everything. Nam is Guru also. Guru is the thing. So when Krishna, Nam, and when ultimately Radha Nam, when they will be satisfied that you're serious about your approach to them, then they lift the curtain of Yoga Maya and allow you to see your eternal Guru Swarup in the course of your chanting. Everything. You will notice that your Guru will be seen in a particular light according to your particular attitude toward Krishna. He's the liaison of Guru Shakti, Kripa Shakti, to the Jivas. It's not actually the Jiva who is Guru, but it's because he is being endowed with Shakti by the desire of Krishna that Guru is manifesting particular aspect of Krishna's Shakti that Krishna wants to reveal to any particular jiva. Therefore, different jivas will be having different visions of their guru. So, just like sometimes we hear all these arguments about whether Prabhupada is a sucker or whether Prabhupada is a gopir, this is actually due to small-mindedness. They're unable to accommodate the fact that the Guru Tattva is multifaceted. Same Guru, even unknowingly, that Guru, he may be seen by his disciple in a particular light. When the Guru will come to know of the disciple's tendency, then the Guru may consciously express in accordance with that particular thought. He must. This is duty. If he's incapable, then he requires a substitute, so to speak, and a substitute teacher, someone, another manifestation of Guru Tattva, who's actually capable of expressing those bonds. But the disciple will always see his Guru in light of his particular style. If he's in Satyabhava, he will see his Guru, his follower of Bali, or the follower of Subha. If he's in Advaita, he will see that his Guru is the follower of Ananda, our refuge, according to his particular liking, which is noticed by the individual disciple by introspection of his own inherent nature. The disciple is duty-bound, not duty-bound, but intelligently, what do you call it? Not programmed. I mean to say that he is obliged, yes, obliged. Must be responsible enough. Because after all, it's the disciple who is supposed to be wanting to go back to Godhead. It's the disciple who is supposed to be exercising his free will, according to his own volition, to approach Krishna, with, let's say, firewood in hand, approach Guru, approach Krishna with a particular desire for sacrificing at the feet of Krishna, for Krishna's pleasure, in a particular capacity. So the disciple has to be intelligent enough, responsible enough to actually look within. You see in our temple, holding something like this. This mudra, not those who never use mudra, they use all kinds of mudra to express themselves in their dancing with Krishna, but not the Aishwarya mudra, of the streets over there. but this particular mudra is Radharani's message to us to look within, to go deep within. This is the introspection of her. She's telling us. Prabhupada said, look within. I forget where I was told that. Yeah, right. It's good enough. Whether it is or it isn't, it's as good as it is. Because the point is important, And I'm sure that's what Radharani wants, because that's the message I got from Radharani. To look within, to see your own inherent nature, and to notice, be awake enough, be awake enough to notice the liking which is produced of your own inherent nature, and follow. You have to, when you see that there's a need, this is the meaning of need. If you don't see any of that, then you cannot say that you actually have clearly ascertained the need. When there's need in the disciple's life, then there's actual need for guru. When there's need in the disciple's life, then that need for guru comes from vague to specific. So when there's need, jigyasu shreya uttamam, when there's actually a need to inquire, anxiousness to inquire about these things, within the heart, jivasya tattva jigyasu, na artha yishcheva, that we don't want to waste our time on any other activities than those activities which help us to get the answers to the question of the truth of our soul's eternal relationship with Krishna. You see? Then there's need. So then we approach Guru to find out what is favorable, what is unfavorable, etc., in terms of both external and internal cultivation. Then as we gradually make progress in terms of our ability to see the truth of ourself by our own introspection. Because after all, we're trying to discover who we are. So it's not like we have to look outside to everyone else to find out who we are. We have to look within our own heart to understand. We have to clean our own heart. We have to clean the mirror, the Cheto Darpana, so that we can see the true reflection of ourselves in that clean mirror. That is Sankirtan. By performing Sankirtan, the mirror of the heart becomes cleansed, so that you will see the true form of your own Swarup by the grace of Nam Sankirtan. And as the need will come, then Nam gradually does all the work. Shrindvatam Swakata Krishna. Punya Shravana Kirtana. That means Nam-Kirtan also. Prityantak Sto Yavadrani, Krishna within the heart. He cleanses the desire for material enjoyment, makes one fixed up, on the pure devotional path, and gives one impetus by causing one to experience the taste of Krishna consciousness. Raso Varjam Rasopyasya Param Drishva Nivartante. Gradually, he becomes fixed up in the consciousness of Krishna, but that consciousness is an individual consciousness of Krishna. So individually, we will be individually seeing Krishna in a particular individual way. That consciousness of Krishna, how I will see Krishna. When I see Krishna, if I ask you, what is it about Krishna that is attractive to you? It may not be exactly 10% comparable to the way, the way I see Krishna. What is attractive to me about Krishna? I like this when I see Krishna. So sweet. Being smile, you know. But if I was going to, someone was asking, what's the quintessence of the attractiveness of Krishna? You know, what would it be? You know, you would have to go to the space, because that's the king of moons, situated on the throne of moons. You know, is it his eyes? You know, is it the moving smile? What was the smile of that man? What's the eyes without the smile? He can smile with his eyes. You know. So what is the most all-enchanting thing about Krishna's eyes? In my heart, you know, I find Krishna's eyes totally overwhelmed. And when we think that those eyes are overwhelmed, and we identify with Radha, you know, and we want to have also relations which will be meant for satisfying Krishna in our every effort to satisfy. Radharani is the ultimate object of our satisfaction. Radharani will tell us that you go and satisfy my Krishna. But no, I can't do that. Because if I do that, then I'll lose my standing as your intimate, you know, Nikunja king. But my question is, you can contemplate, that Narada Muni went on Krishna's request to gather some foot dust from Krishna's devotees. So he went to the earthly Brahmins, nothing. He went to the Vaikuntha Vasis, nothing. He went even to the streets of Dwarka. They would not use it. Why didn't they use it? All they had was everything. Foot dust, everything. You have foot dust? Are you prepared to put your foot dust in? They were not prepared. Why? The earthly Brahmins were afraid of going to hell by transgression the rules and regulations. Vaikuntha Vasis were afraid of losing their standing in Vaikuntha because they think that their qualification for remaining in the Vaikuntha atmosphere is their videos, the Vaidhi Bhakti, So they were afraid of losing their standing in Vaikuntha. They were attached to liberation. The earthly Brahmins were attached to mukti, and the Vaikuntha Vasis were attached to the Samiti Mukti, Sharsti Mukti, Saloki Mukti. And the queens of Dwarka, they were attached to their husbands. They were attached to their husband in this way,
They weren't actually attached to their husband so much for his sake. They were attached to their husband for their sake. There were some desires for self-satisfaction in the relationship with the husband. Therefore, there was a consideration that if we will transgress the rules and regulations that we have on, then surely we will go to hell. The fire of hell is nothing in comparison to the fire of our separation from our husband. So we don't mind going to hell. We don't mind losing our standing in Dwarka Puri. Narada was saying, they say, but we cannot tolerate the fire of separation from our husband. So we're very sorry that we cannot do that. Then he went to the gopis, and the gopis immediately, without any question, immediately gave their fruit. Narada was shocked. He says that, aren't you afraid of going to hell? Hell? What's hell? The fire that we experience is millions of times more than the fire of hell. So aren't you afraid of losing your standing in Braja? He says, we may go anywhere according to our destiny, but we only want to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. We only want to be absorbed in thinking of the pleasure of Krishna. He says, well, aren't you afraid of the fire of separation of your beloved? They say that, yes, the fire of separation, is almost intolerable. But still, we can bear that. But to know that Krishna is in distress is absolutely unbearable. The queens, they would prefer to have Krishna. They would prefer to have the satisfaction of having their husband with his distress. The gopis were prepared to relinquish their relationship with Krishna in consideration of his happiness, his pleasure. But the question comes here that do we think that just because they immediately allowed Narada off with your heads, you're eternally damned to hell. You're eternally damned. You must leave Brajadam and go to hell. You must, eternally experience the fire of separation. How could you dare to think, to put your foot dust? Don't you know that I'm Param Purusha? I'm the supreme controller, Parameshvara. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Sarvaloka including Brajalok, Golok. Don't you know these things? How can you even dare to think to put your foot dust on my head? So therefore, you think Krishna's thinking in this way? That damn them to hell, damn them to become, to lose their standing in Braja, and damn them from ever having my association, because they did the dastardly deed of putting their foot dust on my head. How dare they? Krishna, you think Krishna's thinking? That's the mark of their surrender, the mark of their unalloyed love. They're ready to go to hell. They're ready to lose their standing in Braja. They're ready to endure eternal separation from Krishna. That's what makes Krishna happy. But Krishna's reciprocation with that standard of sentiment, surrendered service attitude, loving sentiment, is that he embraces them all the more. He never condemns them to hell. He never sends them to away from Vaja. But rather, they become more intimate, connected in love, as none other can. So just compare this with the concept of Radha Dāsa. If we will not be prepared to do anything for the pleasure of Radha on her command, even if it means that we have to directly associate with Krishna in the rasa dance, please her, even if it means that we have to directly embrace Krishna, allow Krishna to practically rape us in the course of her leelas, which are designed for the fulfillment of her desires to share her Swayam Rupa Janananda Krishna with others, which gives her 10 million times the happiness of her own meeting with Krishna, for her pleasure, 10 million times the happiness. Do you think that Radharani is going to say that, how is it that she could dare to allow herself to be enjoyed by Krishna? Therefore, I ban her, from the Nikunja sevas. Let her go to hell. Let her lose her standing. We won't let her lose her standing in pleasure. We'll give her a little cottage somewhere. And maybe, an expansion of Krishna will go to satisfy her desires for direct union. This is very important and very deep tattva, which is not understood by most of those who give lip service to common. They don't understand the deepest implications of full surrender to the will of God. But Prabhupada understood. He understood. And he preached it. Although we don't expect anything, but even we can ask, my dear Lord, if we know that Krishna derives pleasure from seeing the beautiful face of God, then how can we dare to ask Radha to tell her Krishna to turn his glance on us? If it wasn't in the consideration of the happiness that Radha experiences. You understand? It's a very important tattva, deep tattva, which should be understood. If we want to understand the full implications of what it means to become as maidservant of Radha. But it has to be the ideal has to be embraced on the platform of complete self-effacement, complete self-sacrifice. There's no question of maintaining any selfishness in the matter of trying to exploit the situation wants to see her husband. She curses the cock who crows in the morning because she's going to have to bear the separation from her husband. But Radharani doesn't want to see it. She has no personal history. She sleeps with Krishna too. But her sleeping with Krishna and Rukmini are like day and night. Krishna condescends to fulfill Rukmini's desire. But Radha condescends to fulfill Krishna's desire to see her. And she curses the cock in the morning because she's unhappy that her Krishna will not be able to continue and her Krishna will feel separation. That is her concern. Such is her love for Krishna. What are the cycles? In Vraja, the devotees think of the other. Think of the welfare of the others. Even if it means I have to go through the fire. That is the meaning of Sankirtan. To cultivate that consciousness when we're doing the distribution, or when we're doing chanting in the temple, or anything, whatever we're doing. It takes some trouble. This is the meaning, this is our training, Tapasya Brahmacharya. To accept some voluntary austerity for the pleasure of Krishna. It begins in a relatively external way, but the principle is the same. When that same principle is internalized, as we begin to make progress, then we begin to understand that we're being trained in Vraja Bhakti from the very beginning. And we didn't realize it. Prabhupada is training us up in Vraja Bhakti from the very beginning. She's giving us the very, you can say, the foundational concept in a way that we can understand, so that when we begin to enter into the internal tattva, we'll realize we'll already have the foundation in our training. That all we have to do is apply the thing in terms of our external training. Just like Srila Prabhupada has trained us how to relish prasada. It's not that we're relishing prasada, we can eat out some sense. That is seva aparad. And by that we can become bound to material existence. By doing seva aparad to prasada, by trying to exploit the prasada for sense gratification. By that seva aparad, we can get bhukti, but we cannot get mukti, and we can never get mukti. Just like nam aparad, you can get bhukti, but you cannot get mukti, and you can never get mukti. So prasad aparad, prasad seva aparad, is also similar. Any seva aparad, you can get bhukti, you can get elevation to heaven. But you cannot get mukti. And no can you hope to get. So Prabhupada has taught us how to relish prasad. What is this relishing prasad? It is not the gratification of our tongue that we personally try to enjoy, the flavors of the prasad and the kind of sense of it. to relish with the proper consciousness. What is the proper consciousness? Is to understand. First of all, to understand how that preparation, by our tasting it and appreciating it, we can get a glimpse of what Krishna must have tasted and appreciated about that preparation. And not only that, but we can appreciate the trouble, the energy, the efforts of the devotees who prepared that preparation for Krishna's pleasure. And then above and beyond that, we can relish the sweetness of Krishna's kisses through that appreciation of flavors of that offering as a reciprocation from Krishna. So, similarly, Srila Prabhupada has instructed that we offer Krishna what he likes. It's not that we offer the veggie burgers and the vegetarian shish kebabs. Because it's something that we like, and to Krishna, so that to make it karma free, so that when we're eating, for our own sense gratification, we're not being implicated in karma. You're not going to get implicated in karma, but you're going to get implicated in aparad. So we don't. We offer Krishna what he likes. And what does he like? What does he like, Ram Roy?
Likes Radharani.
He likes Srimati Radharani. So we offer Radharani to Krishna, and we relish Krishna. What is Krishna? It is the sweetness of the face. As a male egoist, we try to relish the sweetness of a woman's face. How dare us think in those terms? Krishna Prasad is the Antaranga Shakti of Krishna. It is Ladini Shakti. It is meant for Krishna's pleasure. It is meant to help us to understand the meaning of Krishna's pleasure pastimes, the sweetness of Krishna's pleasure pastimes. So by relishing Radha's beauty in terms of how Krishna enjoys that, the sweetness, then we can also participate in relishing the nectar of Krishna's lips. Both directly and indirectly. Although we don't desire, but Krishna forces it. Radharani loves that. She wants to share. Have you read Krishna Bhavanamrita? Krishna Bhavanamrita. You read Govinda Lila? Why not? These books are there. They're so important. Have you read Radharasa? It's also evidence here. There's also evidence.
some people in books with
Famous.
famous.
Love life.
Yeah, maybe they didn't have what we would do.
Anyway, we'll be here for a while. Maybe we should get into reading more.
Again, yeah.
But I read most of the Krishna classes and I heard all of them. Except all this, shooting now. Most of his Rasika groups.
So anyway, the quintessence you'll find in
But I'll try to do, I'll get all classes we can.
Krishna doesn't have everything.
No, whatever he has to say. So I get all his library, all the Rasika books, and get them. And have them read.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because we should have something like, not just someone. We should have all what he has.
Yeah,
except
under
all
lock
this-
and key. Hidden from the GBC.
Yeah, exactly.
Under there, it rhymes.
Because these two books are condemned by GBC, and they really long and also Krishna Karnam and Krishna Bala and everything. Although he already prepared the manuscript to print, and he gave it to someone to read. And then, somehow or another, reading along, he just printed these books. Although before he printed all the books, Chinese books.
We have them from other people as well.
So I can get all.
Anyway, if you can bring his also.
It's like 100 volumes.
Was
100 volumes.
oh,
Literature,
yeah.
and books.
It's actually transmitted the essence of the Bibles. It's a question of the attitude, the penetration, the eligibility. Devotees don't have the eligibility, so they don't seek the Bible is given. They don't bother. They don't take the trouble to do the needful in the matter of whatever is necessary to come to the position of entering in, to the subject matter, deeply enough, opening up, penetrating. You hear so many times, I've heard so many times, I don't know about you, how this kind of movement is either from the side of those who are protagonists of Vaidhi Bhakti, or from those who are dissatisfied with what they perceive to be the Vaidhi Bhakti program, which is only what has been given.
Actually, Prabhupada used to speak.
So we want to be the...
And who has eyes, they can see that Prabhupada himself.
Prabhupada is laced with nectar. If you're intelligent, it's just like, the example is given sometimes of a beautiful woman. When a beautiful woman is dressed in sheer cloth, it's enhanced, but you can't exactly see the details of her form unless that cloth becomes wet by tears. When your tears will wet the purports of Srila Prabhupada, then you'll be able to see more clearly, and yet even still, it is obscured. And the desire, it enhances the desire to remove the covering, to see the form, to relish the form. So, in a similar way, that the womanly form creates a kind of intriguing, what do you call it? Infatuation, yes, in the mind of a man. So similarly, Prabhupada, by covering with various purports pertaining to Varnashram Dharma and all this other dry, not useless, but yeah, you could say it is external, secondary, Rona Bhakti, Rona Bhakti. So by his, whether he conscientiously did it or not, by Krishna's arrangement, it is done in such a way. Because after all, as Prabhupada said, I didn't love you, Krishna loved you.
Mm-hmm.
So Krishna has arranged in such a way that the beauty, of the Vrajalilas, beauty of Vrajabhakti, etc., has become slightly covered, or even considerably covered, just in such a way as to make the reader cry for Krishna, cry in anxiety of feelings of separation from Krishna due to the fact that there's apparently insufficient, nectar, so it makes you work harder. But when you work harder, you appreciate what you get more. If you're actually working, if you're actually crying, if you're actually drenching those purports with your tears, upon even getting a little something of inspiration in that case. And the more you become fit like that, the more you'll realize that there's more than you thought there was. On your first reading, or your second reading, or your 10th reading of Prabhupada's books, the more you'll realize that there's so much inspiration.
How about how reading Prabhupada's purports while you read the other books, how it assists you? There's a certain fidelity that you have in chastity to Prabhupada that you carry with you to read.
But you can also, just like after reading Jaiva Dharma, it was very easy for me to see how Prabhupada was upholding the principles of Jaiva Dharma in his purport. And it helped me to appreciate where he's coming from, his heritage, etc. To see how it was presented. And things were presented very nicely in church. But it's just a question of penetration. Fools think that Prabhupada has just given us the brown paper bag of Vaidhi Bhakti. That's the point that I like to make. And so they think that to throw away ISKCON as being simply I would say an institution which is primarily absorbed in this external external bhakti, preaching and all these things. But actually, But if we will simply take a little trouble, if there's a little interest to search out the essence of what Srila Prabhupada is trying to convey to us, then we will open the brown paper bag and see, valuable truths of $1 million, which solve all of our valuable. But devotees recklessly, due to misunderstanding, due to the inability, insufficient adhikar, to appreciate, the very, very valuable things.
Insufficient qualities. Sometimes it's like diamond, with insufficient, like, corners or insufficient polish and not shining so good. And you can resemble all the qualities of diamond because of insufficient polish, insufficient qualities, less qualities, less shine.
We have to do a little work. It wants us to work. Polish the diamond.
Yeah, because you can enjoy the square diamond. Even diamond. That is very sure like that. House.
Multifaceted. Like that. The Jupiters are waiting for you. It's 12 o'clock again? Is it 12 o'clock? Oh my God. I didn't cook any rice for them. I keep not eating it. I think I'm getting weaker and weaker.
I'll get tomorrow something like searching for one result that takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, that's it.
Really, so taking away.
You can't find Krishna in low bizarre.
Going through all these pipes and entering into really wrong, and you get like stolen all these stuff that all these good things that some trophy just like this, That's right. So what you should get? I give you tomorrow
What?
to get some.
Oh, I got someone brought me. Everything is
So I'll
here.
get carried.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.